another video. Now, just off the top here, we are starting up the Fantasy Basketball League for this channel. If you are interested in that, go to the Discord link in the description. We have a fantasy channel set up in the Discord, and there will be links in there that you can follow to get all set up. As of recording this video, we have 5 teams. There will be 12 teams total, so there are only 7 more spots. So if that's something that interests you, get in while you can. Now, today I wanted to give my predictions for the 2023-2024 NHL season. Preseason is just now wrapping up. We're a few days away from the regular season. So I am going to go conference by conference, giving my predictions for where I think each team will end the regular season. I mostly just watch West Coast games because of the time zone differences, so for anyone, those are the teams I pay the most attention to. I am a Vegas Golden Knights fan. That's the team I pay the most attention to. So my most informed takes will be in the Pacific, a little bit less in the Central, and on the East Coast, I'm mainly drawing on outside sources and a little bit of, off-season news and that stuff. So if there's anything you disagree with me on or any opinion on this list, let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to start with my predictions, and I'll throw in some little, I have some notes here that I wrote down, so I'm just we'll start at the bottom and go up to the top. So, starting in the Pacific Division, the team that I think will finish last is the San Jose Sharks. I don't think I'm, blowing anyone's mind with that prediction. The Sharks, are in the middle of a total tear down and rebuild. They pretty much are not squared away anywhere on their roster, and they're still just getting into the start of a total rebuild. So I think they finish bottom of the Pacific. I'm pretty sure they do have their draft pick this year in the first round, so that's good for them. That should be a top 3 pick. And it's time for them to, get started on remaking that team in earnest. Next up, there's a lot of teams. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 7th in the Pacific, I have the Anaheim Ducks. They just re-signed Zegras and Drysdale. They're still a young team. They're bringing in Fantilli, apparently, Leo Carlson, and they're saying that he will be playing all season. So they're going to have a lot of young guys on that roster, but I still don't think they're going to be fantastic. Their pipeline needs to bring up a few more guys. I think they'll be good in a few seasons, but for now, the Ducks, I have them second to last in the Pacific Division. Just above them in 6th place. Oh wow, actually yesterday Leo Carlson helped off ice at practice, lower body injury. Hold on. Isn't serious, lost an edge on a 1-on-1 drill. Okay, he's expected to start the season, so nothing major, okay. 6th place, I had the Vancouver Canucks. I saw some predictions that had them as high as 4th. But I don't know, the Canucks still feel a bit dysfunctional to me at the moment. And I think there's other teams in the Pacific that are going to be a lot better than maybe some people expect. I don't necessarily think the Canucks are going to be like terrible or anything like that, but I think that some of the teams around them that have been lower in the division the last couple years are going to take a step forward and leapfrog them. One team I'm looking at there that I think is going to be in 5th place is the Calgary Flames. Calgary does have a talented young roster, and they finished, what was their last season point total? 22-23 Western. They finished in 5th place with 93 points last season. So yeah, I have them in the same spot here. I have them in 5th place here. In 4th place, I have the Seattle Kraken. That is where they ended last season. The only real question marks for me at this point is goalie for the Kraken. Grubauer went on an absolute tear to end the season, and they beat the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. Hold on. They beat the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. I don't know if he's going to repeat that performance. I think he might take a step back, so that's where I kind of question. Maybe Calgary will jump to 4th over Seattle if goaltending falters a little bit there. But I think that they should win 4th place yet again. In 3rd place, I have the Los Angeles Kings. The Los Angeles Kings have been one of the most interesting teams of this preseason and offseason. They've looked really good. They've made some really good moves in the offseason. They brought in some veteran guys. I want to get the full list of guys they brought in. They appear Luc Dubois. That's going to be a big one for them. That was after they traded away Dursey, right? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Dubois there. There's one other move. Why can't I? Hold on. I need to find it. There's one other guy I'm thinking of here. Sorry, I should have been a little bit more prepared for this, but yeah, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Is that there has to have been one more I'm thinking of. Okay, I don't know what I'm thinking of, but and then also I think that Quentin Byfield will take a big step forward. He looked really good in preseason. But I think Kings are like sneaky talented. They really accelerated their rebuild and they jumped up considerably, in my opinion. They looked great in preseason. I think Vegas played them 3 or so times, maybe 4 times even, and they got leads early in a lot of those games. They had a super fast offense. Speaking of Vegas, I think Vegas will finish 2nd in the Pacific Division. That's where I predicted them last season as well. They did end up finishing 1st by 2 points when all was said and done. And really, this Vegas roster has not seen much turnover. Now, Zach Whitecloud is starting the season off with an injury, but Mark Stone will be there to start the season. The only really big offseason move was trading away Riley Smith to the Pittsburgh Penguins. But there's been a lot of consistency from last season to this season for the Vegas Golden Knights. And last season, that was a Stanley Cup winning roster. I don't necessarily expect the Vegas Golden Knights to repeat, but I do think that their team will still be very good, and I expect them to come second in the Pacific Division, and I expect their point total to be very close to the team who I think will finally win the Pacific Division, the Edmonton Oilers. Connor Brown was injured most of last season, but he should be good to go this year. I think Connor Brown could be the secret sauce that Edmonton needs. Put him on McDavid's line. I think that could be huge for them. Last year, obviously, the rub with Edmonton was their lack of 5v5 scoring. They had like a record-breaking power play offense, but the 5v5 wasn't really there, and that ended up being their undoing in the playoffs. We'll see if something similar happens this year. I think the Oilers will win the division regardless, but if they want to go far in the playoffs, they need to figure out that 5v5 offense, because those whistles do not come in the playoffs. As we all know, the rules are different in the playoffs. It's just the way it is. Leaving the Pacific, moving now to the Central Division. Bottom of the Central, I have the St. Louis Blues. I also expect they will be the first team to fire their coach this season. Blues have just kind of been on a downward trajectory now. Ever since winning the Cup, they traded away a lot of their Cup-winning guys. Pietrangelo, obviously, O'Reilly, a lot of those guys aren't with the team anymore. So, yeah, I think Blues will probably finish bottom of that Central Division. Now a team that took a big step back, and they were one of the major losers of this offseason, and there was a lot of turmoil around this team in this offseason. The Winnipeg Jets. I think the Winnipeg Jets will finish 7th in the Central, second to last. They just lost a lot of guys. There's a lot of turnover with their roster, and things do not seem to be going well there in Winnipeg in general. Now in 6th place, this might be a bit of a hot take. Some people still have them as the worst team in the Central. Some people think they'll be 7th or 8th, but I think the Chicago Blackhawks will be 6th. I think they will finish 6th. Obviously, Bedard, I think he is likely to win the Calder this year. He looked really good in preseason. He was pulling off some incredible moves. And, I mean, looking at their roster, Bedard, obviously, they brought in Tennessee, Ryan Donato, just looking, Taylor Hall is there, Corey Perry came in, Seth Jones, Connor Murphy. There's some guys. I think that goalie might be an issue for them, but I mean they aren't a playoff team yet. But I don't think they're gonna be bottom of the Central. I have them coming 6th. In 5th place, I'm predicting the Arizona Coyotes. They're a team that I don't think is going to be as bad as people expect. They're actually smart moves. And in the preseason especially, I try not to put too much stock into preseason, but at this point it's really the only thing to go off of. But they actually did look pretty good. Their offense looks good. Their defense looks fairly disciplined. There's a lot of question marks around the franchise's future and things like that, but I think currently it's actually a pretty respectable roster. And I'm predicting them to come 5th in the Central. Coming 4th, a team that has kind of leveled out recently and has fallen short of the lofty expectations they had placed upon them. I have the Minnesota Wild coming 4th in the Central. I've been kind of disappointed with the trajectory of the Wild. Like I said, there's a point where they kind of seemed like an inevitability, like not to win a cup maybe, because you never can do that, but like they were going to be a powerhouse team. But I don't know, the Wild just don't scare me like they used to scare me. It feels like they've taken a bit of a, like I said, a bit of a step back. And I'm not convinced. I think that they've been jumped by the team that I have 3rd in the Central, which is the Nashville Predators. Nashville looks really good. Let's see. Because they have, let's see, Andrew Brunette's their head coach. Who did they bring in? Who was his assistant? Hold on, his assistant coach. Because he was talking about, why can't I find it? This isn't what I'm looking for. Derek McKenzie. He was talking about how he wants to turn it into like a fast-paced offense. Cody Glass took a pretty good leap last year. I think he will be pretty good this season for them. But just looking at their roster, Forsberg, Glass, they brought in O'Reilly, Sissons could be something there. Nyquist, Sherwood, they have Tyson Berry, Alexander Carrier, Roman Josi, Dante Fabro, Soros, of course, and they have Lankinen. I think that roster, I think they'll take the leap. I think the Nashville will finish 3rd. 2nd in the Central Division. A team that sparked a little bit of rivalry with the Vegas during the playoffs last season. I think that the Dallas Stars will finish 2nd in the Central. That's a team that looked really good in the playoffs. They surprised a lot of people. Pete DeBoer's offensive schemes have been working really well in Dallas given their personnel. And I don't see any reason why they won't finish right where they did last season. Last season they ended 1 point behind the Avalanche. They had 108 points. But in my opinion, the Avalanche will be even better this season than they were last season. They traded away Alex Newhook and brought in Johansson, who I think will be better for them. He's a veteran. He's a little bit more reliable. And I think that McCarr, because I think he was dealing with some injury issues last season, and the Avalanche were upset by the Kraken. No one really saw that coming. In the playoffs, they were riddled with injuries last season. I think this season they should be even better, especially roster-wise than they were last year. And I think they will pretty comfortably win the Central. My way too early prediction is that the Western Conference Final will be Oilers versus Avalanche. Let's move to the Metro now. Again, East Coast I don't follow as closely, so these are going to be some more generalized takes. For the Metro Division, I have the Flyers finishing bottom of that division. They're kind of in a similar position as the Sharks right now, just kind of rebuilding, in my opinion. Second to last team, I have in 7th place, I have the Washington Capitals. They had their cup run, but then ever since they won the cup, they've kind of just been mediocre to bad since then. You take, Ovi off that team, like, what do they really have? And at this point, given his age, he's going to start slowing down, I don't think. I don't even think he's going to be a goal-scoring leader this season. But yeah, I have Washington Capitals finishing 7th in the Metro. In 6th place, I have the Show Me Your Phone Columbus Blue Jackets. That's a young team. They still need to build up their identity. They brought in, obviously, new head coach. That didn't work. You had the old tenured GM there. I don't know. The Columbus, I think they'll be better than last season. They finished bottom of the Metro, but I think the competition is so stiff in that division, I don't see them being better than 6th. In 5th place, dropping a spot from last year, I have the New York Islanders. I don't really have too much of a reason for that. It's just that I think that the other teams in the division, notably the Penguins, who fell out of the playoffs and were in 5th place last season, took a jump. And that's why in 4th place I have the New York Rangers. I think that the failure to develop Lafreniere is going to start to rear its ugly head at this point. Capo Caco as well, but to a lesser extent. I think the Rangers are still a playoff team, but given the way things went last season, I personally have a lot of question marks around that team and how good they're going to be, because they looked, that playoff series for them was terrible. The Patrick Kane signing didn't really do much for them, and I kind of fear that they have eschewed development in favor of just bringing guys in, but I think that only gets you so far personally. And also, I think Pittsburgh has jumped up now, in my opinion, to the 3rd place in the Metro. I view the Penguins as a boom or bust team. They're either going to be really good, and if they're really good, I think they get this 3rd place spot, or they're going to bust. They are a boom or bust team. So I think they're either going to be 3rd or 6th. But just for the sake of this video, I'm going to say they're 3rd. That's an old team. You have Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, Erik Karlsson. All their best players are over the age of 30 by a pretty decent margin. So that's an old team. Some of those guys, like Karlsson, have had injury issues in the past. So we'll see if it works for them. Like I said, if it works for them, I think they make the playoffs. I don't know if they win a round, but I think their ceiling here is 3rd place. I think their basement is 6th. 2nd place in the Metro Division, I have a team that won the division last season by a point, and that's the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't think the Hurricanes have gotten worse. I just think the Devils have gotten better, and that's why I am predicting them to win the Metro Division. And I'm also predicting the Devils to come out of the Eastern Conference to go to the Stanley Cup Final. I haven't been able to determine yet if I think they're going to be playing Edmonton or Colorado in the Stanley Cup Final. I think they'll be playing one of those two teams. But I do think the New Jersey Devils will be coming out of the East. That is, of course, barring any injuries or anything like that. I think Nico Hischier will be the Selke winner this season. That's one of my hot takes. I think that he, because Bergeron's gone now, so you have your first post-Bergeron Selke. My opinion, that's going to be Nico Hischier. And my other hot take is Timo Meier is going to be a Rocket Richard candidate. He was a monster last season. I think they'll be even better this season. And I think Timo Meier will be a Rocket Richard candidate, and I think Nico Hischier will win the Selke this season for the New Jersey Devils. And finally, we move to the Atlantic Division. I think my picks for the Atlantic might end up being my most controversial ones, at least at the bottom here. Excuse me, except for the bottom here, I don't think there's any surprise. I have the worst team in the Atlantic being the Montreal Canadiens. They got 68 points last season. Now they did look decent in preseason, and they have Slavkovsky now, who really delivered. He looked ready in preseason. Suzuki looks good. I don't know how you say his name. Sekaj, Xhekaj. I apologize. And there's some good stuff there, but this is an extremely competitive division. And I think that there's some teams in front of them that really took a step forward. So I think the Canadians are on the right track. They have a lot of really good talent. But I think just like last season, this season they will also finish bottom of the Atlantic. But I could see maybe next season them starting to creep up a little bit. In 7th place, I have the Detroit Red Wings, still a young team. But again, meat grinder of a division. Every single team, 1 through 6, ahead of the Canadians and the Red Wings, will be pushing for the playoffs, in my opinion. So it's not like these two teams being terrible. I just literally think every other team, Boston, Toronto, Tampa, Florida, Buffalo, and even Ottawa, will be pushing for the playoffs this season. And I expect our wild cards to be coming out of the Atlantic this year. Okay. Next up, and this might be where it gets controversial because this team finished 3rd last season with 98 points. But I have the 6th place team in the Atlantic Division as the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, part of that is because Andrei Vasilevsky is injured and he is going to miss the first 2 months at least of the NHL regular season. And I think that in such a competitive division, like I said, with so many teams pushing for the playoffs, I think that they will dig themselves into a hole during Vazzy's absence that they will not be able to dig themselves out of to get into a playoff spot. It's not necessarily that I think the Lightning will be bad. Like I said, I think that there's just going to... The first 2 months of the season will be rough for them. And even if they do recover and get back to form once Vassy comes back, I think by that point the season might be too far gone for a team in such a tough division. In 5th place, I have the Ottawa Senators. They've been making a lot of smart moves. You finally have some new ownership coming into that team, and I think that this isn't, they're on the right track. They're going to be pushing for the playoffs this season. I think they end up in 5th place. This one also might be controversial. In 4th place, place, I have the Boston Bruins. The Bruins finished last season with 135 points, the most points of any team in NHL history. But they lost Bertuzzi. Patrice Bergeron's gone. Krejci is gone. And I don't feel like they adequately replaced those guys. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the Atlantic Division is a meat grinder. And I think Boston, especially because they've been so, they put so much into last season. They had the terrible loss in the playoffs, and they've had so much heartbreak the last couple seasons. I feel like they're just going to come up a little bit short this season. I think they still make the playoffs, but I picked them to be 4th in the Atlantic Division. Well, then who am I picking to be 3rd? Well, the Buffalo Sabres. I think the Buffalo Sabres end the playoff drought this year. In my opinion, the only question mark the Buffalo Sabres have is goalie. Their offense looks fantastic. Their defense is really good. The Sabres have built a bit of a wagon here. I'm really excited. I'm not a fan of Buffalo, but that's a team that I root for because they've had such little success over the years. I want them to be good, kind of like how I feel about the Arizona Coyotes in a way. There's certain teams that you just want them to be good because they haven't been. And I would love it if, the Sabres end their playoff drought here. They have a great offense. Tage Thompson's there. Alex Tuck, of course. You have Owen Power in there now. The other guy, why can't I think of his name? Let me just look. Let's see, they have Zach Benson in there, Dylan Cousins, Peyton Krebs, Middlestat, Olofsson, Skinner, Thompson, Tuck, Rasmus Dahlin, that's what I was thinking of, Owen Power. They have a lot of guys there. Like I said, the only question I have is goalie for the Sabres, but I think they finished 3rd in the Atlantic Division this season. Maybe a hot take. 2nd place, a team who finished with 92 points last season, but was the big story of the NHL playoffs. In 2nd place, give me the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers, Matthew Tkachuk is making an argument for being a top 10 player in the league if he isn't already there. He, is a one-man wrecking ball. Gets it done on both sides of the ice. Extremely dynamic player. I don't know if I expect the Panthers to go on quite the postseason run that they went on last year, but I think they will have a lot of success in the regular season, and I'm going to predict them to finish 2nd in the Atlantic, which means I think that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to win the Atlantic Division. Their offense is still amazing. They have Rocket Richard level guys I'll be pushing for that, the Hart Trophy on the roster, of course. Obviously Austin Matthews, a top 5 player in the league. Nylander is underrated at this point, surprisingly. I love Marner. He's my favorite guy on that roster, even though he gets a lot of flack from the fan base. I like Marner a lot, but I have the Maple Leafs winning the Atlantic. Like I said, I think the Devils end up coming out of the East ultimately. But yeah, so those are my final predictions for the NHL regular season. Just a quick rundown of, only basing things off preseason and some off-season moves. Now once we get into the season a little bit, usually around the Christmas break, I like to take a look at the standings, and I'll do another video then, maybe updating some of my predictions, talking about what I think about the season so far, underperformers, overperformers, things like that. But those are my preliminary predictions for the NHL season. Let me know in the comments down below what disagree with. I'd love to hear any and all feedback. I go through once a week and respond to most comments, so let me know. Anyways, if you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this almost every single day. Until next time, guys. Bye bye.